Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scare Your Friends. I am joined by my friends Dylan, Dan, and William once again, and we are going to be discussing taking showers together as friends. What do you guys think of that?
I'm out. I wasn't informed of this coming in, and I'll be leaving now. See you guys later.
All right.
So if somebody does my back and my ass crack, I'm totally okay with
All
it.
right.
Are you incapable
That's
of
John's
getting
job.
your own ass crack, Dan? Is that what you're telling us?
What do you want me to tell you? I'm overweight. Is that what you want me to tell you, Will?
Uh,
I'm overweight.
no.
I'm a fat sack of shit. I can't reach my own asshole.
Wait, do you not wash your asshole in the shower?
Okay. 1, yes. 2, let's end this discussion right now before it gets crazy.
Unfortunately for Dan, Nate is not here.
To do the job.
Oh my god.
All right, well, enough of that opening.
Okay, just
Dylan, how are you
Nathan
doing
and I
today?
are not gay lovers. We're friends. We make a lot of gay jokes.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Although it'll be weird for Dylan. Dylan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Just okay, you know.
Dylan, do
Okay.
you wash your ass crack in the shower?
We kind of have to.
Thank you,
Kinda have to.
Dan. No need to be
It's not-
defensive.
that wasn't
Oh, I shit my
Wait,
butt in the
hold
shower,
on.
it freaks
Hold
out.
on. Wait a minute. He asked if you did, and you said, but you have to. I mean, that doesn't answer his question.
You kind of have to.
That's
You kind of have to.
Dylan,
yeah.
I need a yes or a no.
It's a yes.
There
It's
we
a
go.
yes.
See, John, it's okay.
Oh, my God.
Someone was defensive.
why the fuck are we having
Someone
this
was very.
discussion?
Someone's still defensive. We
Yeah,
got
All I
yes.
wanted to do was talk about taking showers together as friends, and we had to make it weird.
Wait. Yes or no, Dan? Do you?
No,
I said yes.
Okay.
I said yes.
I wasn't.
Ooh.
It's a
coherent
really
with that.
uncomfortable conversation. to
yes,
have.
it is. Also, Dan, hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I apologize for everyone listening to this right now. I'm doing fine, John. Thank you.
William?
What?
All right, then.
Can I help you?
What was your favorite episode of Scary Friends? I really like the one where they talk about their dirty assholes.
Well, maybe if you wiped in the shower with something, even your hand, I don't care how you manage it, make it
Get
work.
a loofah.
Get a rag on a stick, like in, I don't know. Where's that from? Where's the rag on a stick from?
I don't know. I don't care. What are we actually reading today,
We're reading
John?
the showers.
Jesus fuck.
That's why I
You know what we're reading, Dan.
That's not a clean asshole.
All right.
This
John.
story was recommended to me. I've never read it before, but it was recommended.
no.
It was covered on Undercooked Analysis. I did not listen to that episode though. They covered it in 2 parts, and so will we. Today we're going to be
John,
reading part 1.
John, didn't we already try this and it ended miserably?
Well, they didn't do the House of Death Forgot. That was just me picking a story at random.
fair enough.
Okay, maybe second time's the charm.
We'll see.
I don't know. We're off to a really good start talking about dirty assholes.
Well, maybe-
Well, if you keep mentioning it, maybe we
Yeah.
can't move on.
I mean, how the fuck are we supposed to go past that?
Pucker up, sunshine. We're moving forward, all right?
God. Oh my god.
John, start us off. Will
All right.
I
This
need,
is,
I need another beer.
all right, well, we're just going to hop in then. We're going to just hop into the shower. This is The Showers, Part 1. Every area in all parts of the world has those area-specific urban legends that just refuse to die. Whether the stories about a haunted asylum on the outskirts of the city, a creature that lives in the nearby woods, or a ghost that haunts a lonely stretch of road outside of town, there is always a common thread within the tales. No one has ever been to these places, seen the creatures, or witnessed any hauntings with their own eyes. Also, I don't know how to end a sentence. My God, please stop.
Hey, no, bullshit. People have seen the Loch Ness Monster, man.
I mean, I
It's
guess.
not a myth.
Wasn't there a
Happened.
movie that they had? I forgot what it's called. And they disproved that or something. It was
I don't know,
fiction.
Dylan. You
It
tell
was
me.
fiction,
You
though,
love.
but, you know.
That sounds like a sci-fi film. That sounds like a sci-fi joint,
It was-
and that's your jam. You were the
No,
connoisseur
it was
of
like,
those
it was
films.
like the kids found an egg and it was like the Loch Ness Monster and stuff. You know, I don't know what the name of the movie was, but you know, it was about Loch Ness Monster and it was in the water and then they faked the freaking photo.
Wait a minute. The
Wait,
Loch Ness
well,
Monster was in
all
the
right.
water?
I was really gonna let him just go until
I was
there was
waiting.
like a stunned silence. Thanks, John.
Well, I didn't want to make him feel bad.
No,
He should feel bad.
Why?
All the time. You hear what he says?
What? He's just talking about a movie.
It's profoundly upsetting.
How is
I
it
wouldn't
upsetting?
say that.
But you
I
didn't.
just-
He stopped me, not you.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that it just. I like that I love the idea of like listening to someone drone on, and when they're done, you're like,
No, guys, we already gave him enough shit with Canadians, man. Just
Fair
move
enough,
on.
Fair enough.
There are members of every generation who proclaim that they know someone whose brother's best friend's sister went to the haunted house with 13 floors that used real blood and snakes and spiders and is so scary that no one has ever made it all the way through. Those same people will swear by these stories without ever being able to provide a shred of evidence or a name of someone who could provide proof of the claim simply because everyone around here knows it's a true story. The storytellers eventually pass on these tales onto their children, who modify them just enough to keep up with the changing times, and the cycle continues.
Okay, I'm nervous already
I'm a little nervous
because
too.
I'm getting Pokemon Strangled Red flashbacks.
I don't think it's gonna go there.
I really fucking hope not. You know what I'm talking about.
This idea of the narrator being meta for a moment.
Right.
Leveling with us kids.
Hold on,
Right.
wait. Hold on. Let me read the next
That's
sentence.
what I'm worried
Can we
about.
make a deal if it does go south? Can we just stop?
No,
No.
no. We
No.
owe it to the audience.
No.
You don't escape from this, Dylan.
Damn
You don't escape from the cave. You never remember the
It's
cave.
gonna haunt us forever.
I just dig a hole.
Yeah, we could just stop, go watch Tokyo Drift, you know, the
God
usual.
damn it,
That
Dad!
would be better. That would be preferable.
I'm as skeptical as anyone when it comes to these stories.
Cool.
Seeing as I was like a junkie when I was younger, constantly searching for more terrifying stories about whatever area of the country I was living in at the time. I made up and spread stories about haunted pizza parlors in New York, my cousin's encounter with the Jersey Devil, or how my grandfather encountered a feral human-like demon creature in the woods of Colorado. I even broke the one rule with these stories, by putting myself in them. This took guts. In hindsight, I had to make sure that I always told them the same way. Surprisingly, no one ever called my bluff.
Boy who cried wolf.
I don't mean to keep interrupting, but this narrator, the way she's talking now, my mother and my uncle confirm this. My mother told me a story that she went to summer camp when she was a kid upstate with my uncle, and they told this story of this three-headed monster called Cropsy that like roamed the woods, and my uncle swears to this day that he saw this fucking monster when he was taking a piss in the woods, like when he was like 12 or 13.
What's its name?
Cropsy?
We
Cropsy.
talked about
We
this.
probably
We
did.
talked about this with the one where they're on the road and the guy was found hanging up upside down the tree, like on the car. Remember that? They're on the road. They're on the road and they went to go ahead like helping out the car and stuff.
What are
And
you talking about?
we never
read
read there was a story we read. I know we read it. Like something happened where a guy was. Oh no, this was a story. That's the same story my dad told me.
Yeah.
Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't a story that we
I thought it was a
actually
story
covered.
we did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
audience.
fine.
I'm
But I was
so
very
sorry.
confused. I was like, I don't remember that. That sounds awesome. But yeah, it was just like
Because the story, the name sounds so familiar. I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. It was
when
like
when I would go over their house when I was a kid, we like to like my uncle and I like to play fight with my cousin, and whenever he beat us, I would always just bring up Crops and he'd be like, "Shut up."
Cropsy, Cropsy.
I like to think that I have had some wonderful contributions to various urban legends around the Midwest and northeastern states. I move around a lot. There was always a surge of joy whenever I would wander the halls at school and hear one of my classmates retelling my stories to another one of their friends, adding little bits here and there like a massive game of telephone. I knew, of course, that the stories were complete fiction, but I stood my ground whenever someone asked me about them. I would even manage to act a little bit, speaking with a shaky voice or looking scared when I would recount a situation that I supposedly experienced myself.
Fucking compulsive liars.
I was about to say, this kid is just like an intense liar.
Honestly, though, I think I've met this kid before.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure we all have when we were younger, especially in high school.
My
There
dad
was
works
always
at
that
Nintendo, I swear.
one- Yeah,
you lying sack
my
of shit.
dad works at Nintendo.
Super Mario 6 confirmed.
I suppose this aspect of my childhood has led to my current predicament, which I will recount in full for the internet to take from it what they will. I have laid this little introduction out as a sort of disclaimer, aimed particularly at those who will call my story into question. I have been like the boy who cried wolf for years, but I assure you with every ounce of honesty and integrity that I have that this time the wolf is real. So his idea is to validate his story, he talks about what a lying shit he is for several paragraphs.
So this is already like
By the way,
Pokemon Strangled
okay.
Red.
By the way,
What the
I
fuck?
don't mind him doing this, but I think
Right.
I think it drones on a little bit. too long. As far as, we get it. You're posting a story on Creepypasta, on creepypasta.com.
Yeah.
You know, we get it.
That, and once again, stylistically, this is such a weird choice for the beginning of a story, especially since, like,
Let's not
it's
validate
like
ourselves.
it's like, well, duh. Like,
Right.
this could be real, it could be not real. You don't have to emphasize either one.
This winking narrator trope is
Right.
really
You
kind
don't
of
have
tired.
to. You don't have to emphasize that it could be
I
real
feel
or
like
not be
we've-
real. That's one thing. But the fact that he's explicitly saying, "Hey, I make up a bunch of bullshit, but this is real. I promise you," is fucking annoying.
Well, I
and
think
it makes no sense.
Well, it could be
stylistically.
that. It could be him saying, "When I was a kid, I did this," because he is talking about how he used to do
I
this.
guess, but then you completely
Right.
invalidate.
Oh, I know.
Because
I
we'll
understand.
finish this story and we'll be like, well,
it's
was it real or not? Like, that's all we're going to talk about, right?
Right. I mean, that's the core concept of what you're
Right.
trying
Right.
to
And
create
again,
here.
I don't
Right.
necessarily mind it. I think maybe just cut down on the size and you'll be fine.
Right.
So far, it's, as far as a positive I can say, it's well written.
Yeah.
This person knows how to write. It's not like Strangled Red, Strangled Red, the dude didn't know how to write.
No, it's not written like someone who's been lobotomized the way Strangled Red was. Good lord.
All
From
right.
my introduction, it is probably apparent that I moved around the country quite a bit in my middle and high school years. Neither of my parents had anything to do with any branch of the armed forces. They simply didn't tend to hang around at any given place for too long. That's fucking sketchy.
Every story we have, like every
No,
story
it's
we
not.
have.
No, what the armed forces? Because, no, they move... Because I think army families move around.
No, he said they have
specifically
nothing to
says
do with the armed
Neither of
forces.
them have anything to do with the armed forces.
Oh, did he?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the preceding
Oh,
sentence.
neither of my parents. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why it's sketchy. I suppose it had some sort of effect on me, but I wasn't hurt by it or anything of the sort. Growing up, I was a complete ham. I made friends very easily, was often the class clown, and because of that was often disliked by my teachers. Again, this was never an issue, as I was usually in another state by the time the next semester rolled around.
So this is he's like a clown on tour.
Yeah,
Just
well,
literally.
My friendships were often fleeting, as were any positive relationships that I ever had with my teachers. Because of the events that followed, my memory of one teacher in particular is still probably skewed, but I will attempt to give the least biased version of our friendship that I can. Mr. Mays was one of my social studies Stop. It's one of my social studies teachers in the early years of my high school experience. Being older now, I can understand how horrible children are to deal with around that age, and I respect him to no ends for the way that he was able to connect with his students. He seemed like one of us. He talked like us, made pop culture references that were current, listened to cool music, and sometimes he would even say hell or damn while he was giving a passionate lecture about Native American history or something like that. A teacher that swore even a little bit was the epitome of cool to a freshman high school class.
Honestly, I kind of.
Yeah, when you're a kid, yeah. My memories of Mr. Mays mostly stem from the way that he really got into anything that he was doing. The instance that is still very vivid in my mind was, of course, around Halloween of my sophomore year. Mr. Mays had a typical teacher decorations around the classroom, smiling jack-o'-lanterns and black cat cartoons, typical and boring in the midst of egotistic high school students. However, on the 31st of October, when most other teachers were rolling their eyes at the fact that teenagers still took dressing up in costume as Halloween seriously, Mr. Mace took the whole cool teacher thing to a new level.
We walked into the classroom and were surprised to find the blinds drawn, sheets over the smaller windows, candles lighting the room, and a single frowning jack-o'-lantern sitting on a stool in front of the desks. Mr. May sat at his desk, just watching the students come into class and take their seats. He didn't have to ask anyone to be quiet because the moment everyone walked in the room, they were either too excited to care about petty conversations or too confused to bother with them. The students took their seats as Mr. Mays began his lecture. He spoke quietly to set the mood, and took a seat on a chair right next to the jack-o'-lantern in the center of the room. Today is probably my favorite day of the year, class, he said in a monotonous voice.
Monotonous
voice.
Do a monotonous voice, Dylan.
He already is. Got him. Go on, Dylan.
Fucking owned. We should really look
Do it-
into
do
more
it-
burn centers.
Do we have more burn cream with you,
Oh,
please?
No, go ahead, Dylan. Keep reading.
Halloween is my favorite holiday, and I want to share with you exactly why I love it so much. One girl raised her hand with a concerned look on her face. I'm pushing the due date for your papers to next Tuesday, said Mr. Mays, without bothering to look at the girl, who slowly put her hand down, looking around at the other students with a hint of embarrassment.
Fucking owned.
Bitch. Wanted to do school.
Wanted to do school.
Mr. Mays, what about our papers? Silence.
Silence.
We're gonna be cool
It's
today.
the witching hour.
I'm the best.
Check out the Witching Hour podcast.
The class erupted into quiet cheers, and Mr. Mays waited for the inevitable silence. He began his story immediately after the class had calmed down. I will attempt to recreate the amazing story that Mr. Mays told the class that day. The way in which he told this story rendered the horror junkies speechless, and the rest of the class terrified. The same girl that had raised her hand to ask about the paper was holding her knees to her chest by the end of it, a look of terror on her
Look,
face.
this fucking shit where they, like, build up their own story, this, like, masturbatory bullshit, this tires me out a little bit.
It does tire
We
me
got
too.
through the introduction. It was it wasn't terrible, but it was there, and it really shouldn't have been there that much. You know, this whole winking, nodding, nudging, I'm a kid just like you, let's talk about it. And now we got this, like, teacher thing, and this guy's just gonna talk about
Now
how
we have
cool
a
the
story within a story.
Dude, this,
Is
like,
this
well,
it? What the fuck?
Just tell
Well,
your
no, I
fucking
mean,
story.
no, I think
my
he's.
name's
I don't
to my
think.
chest.
Well, no, first of all, I like that. I like the fact that it's the same girl. First of all, second of all, I think he's just talking about some story that Mr. Mays told the class. Is he? Unless he's,
Of course
is he
he
about
is.
to go into
He's
what the
going
story
to go
John,
into
is?
he's telling the story that Mr. Mays told. My problem is this masturbatory paragraph of, it was so cool, the hard junkies were speechless, the rest of the class terrified. I'll tell you, but first I'm going to tell you how great it is, just so you know what to think when I
Just a
tell
little
it.
bit of
Just,
Yeah, it's
just,
a little,
just
yeah.
a tropey, you know.
It's just
story.
tiresome,
A tropey story.
that's all.
It's just the tropey story within the story's trope.
just a quick fucking tug job, maybe a finger in the butt.
Yeah,
you know?
just a quick little
You know,
fingeroo.
And then wash it off in the shower.
For some of us, maybe.
Fuck off.
Well, some of us like chocolate rain.
All right. We gotta. John,
Okay,
please.
We gotta end this.
And go.
Ugh.
The important thing to know was what the story was about. The specifics slip my mind now, but aren't too relevant. I'll try to reconnect the parts of the story that matter the most, but don't hold me to it. Basically, Mr. Mays and his friends, Mr. Mays and his friends, oh, okay, this is the story.
Teachers can have friends, John.
Okay,
Well, no, he's talking
I
about his
thought
high
like,
school.
I thought this was
students.
like still happening in the classroom, like there was more adults in
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Right.
Mr. Mays and his friends gathered around the classroom and started chanting. No, basically, Mr. Mays and his friends set out on a road trip around the country after graduating from college. Okay, they took a truck, loaded it with camping gear, and set out to sightsee for the entire summer. The group went from what is that?
The Poconos.
The Poconos. Oh, the Poconos. Oh, shit. The Poconos in New Jersey, down to the coast of Florida, New Orleans to California, and up to Washington. From there, they went to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and then went back home to New York. This concept of freedom to travel anywhere had the entire class hooked in an instant. Mr. Mays was the coolest teacher ever, in my eyes.
William.
Being adventurous college kids, the group didn't bring a map. There was no time constraints, so they just kind of drove in the general direction they wanted to go and eventually found a town to stay in or someplace that looked interesting.
That's kinda
That's,
cool.
I mean, that's stupid to me.
I
That's
don't know.
incredibly impractical. Because how the fuck do you know if you're gonna hit a gas station or a town
I
and fucking
mean,
fuel back
it's
up?
real dumb, but like, damn, where's your sense of adventure?
I love how okay, you guys can't see this. When I started reading that sentence, William was not in, and then the second I started talking about the sentence, he was like, "Yeah,
How
adventure."
cool Mr. Mays was.
He's like, William was just doubting how cool Mr. Mays was, and then I read that sentence, and I was like, "Motherfucker, basically, it's so fucking
Two
cool."
minutes ago, this is masturbatory. No, that's kind of good.
No, I'm a Mr. Mays convert. That's
All right.
fine.
He told us that after spending a week in Colorado, he and his friends had to travel through miles and miles of corn, plains, and more corn. He assumed that they were either in Nebraska or Kansas when they decided to pool their extra cash to stay in a hotel for the night. They settled into a motel in some town that Mr. Mays could barely remember the name of, when one of his friends realized that they were somewhere near his grandfather's farm. He wasn't entirely sure where it was, but being adventurous college kids, they decided to get a quick refund from the motel and try to contact their friend's grandpa.
Okay, hold up, I'm out. So, we start, and they're in the fucking Poconos. They're in Nebraska with no map. And this kid's like, hey, look, I recognize that corn over there. That's my grandpa's corn. Are you fucking shitting me?
Well, no, I
What?
Wait a minute. I don't think...
They just stumble across
No. They
Randy
settled
and
into...
Gramps'
No, they settled into some town, and once they were figured out the name of the town, the friends realized how close.
Right.
That's what I think happened.
Right.
I don't
It's
think
not-
the guy looked at the corn and said, I remember this.
That's still
Once
pretty unlikely.
Once a corn husker, always a corn husker.
No.
Okay?
When you're like cross-country driving with no map, which is fine. Have some fun, burn some gas, see some corn. I'm not opposed to it, but this idea that you just stumble across like your grandfather's town is a bit.
I think it's
That's all.
I think it's a coincidence, but it's not impractical. I think that the friend realized what town they were in and said, "Oh, this isn't far off from my." Yeah, I think
I'm
it's.
gonna agree with John. On this one.
Also, we don't know the relationship yet. Like, we don't know if this
What?
is like. Well, if like how long has it been since he saw his grandpa?
right.
Oh,
Like,
well.
if he's close, then obviously it's a bit. I don't know.
They're gonna go sleep
All
at
right.
the haunted farm.
Right.
It's cool.
They were unable to get a hold of the grandpa on the phone, so the group figured that it would be fun just to show up.
What a bunch of bitches.
Mr. May's friend was adamant that his grandparents would take them in and feed them without a moment of hesitation. So the group set out with an hour of sunlight, seeking the salvation of a comfortable house to stay in.
In Kansas, or Nebraska, wherever it may have been, we still haven't figured it out, there aren't a whole lot of natural markers that could guide lost travelers. Any directions given to someone who didn't live around the area basically amounted to, go up a couple miles to the corn, take a right and go down a dirt road to the other corn. There should be some wheat on your right. So as is the case in most scary stories, the group got lost. Never wanting to admit defeat, they drove into the night, making wrong turns every 5 minutes until they found themselves on a wooded road that Mr. May's friend was certain his grandparents lived off of.
And the woman driving was named Melinda Orton, and she.
Yup.
I
PTSD.
want them to fucking.
This is already way better than
It's
that.
true. I want them to make it to the farm, and it's like, oh, Grandpa Eustace and Grandma Mariel, and then they have a pink little dog
maybe
that hangs out.
hold on. If he has, I know it says grandpa's house, but if both of his grandparents are alive, maybe we can get a little. Maybe we can hear a little Granny Royce.
Oh yeah.
Mr. May has described the road as basically a dark path to hell. I wasn't entirely sure how true this was, because he got very excited and a bit ridiculous with his explanations of the trees that almost tried to grab the car, and the red eyes of countless animals looking at them from the darkness.
Yeah, of course.
Regardless, the typical horror tropes worked on most of the class. Everyone was terrified.
I also
Sorry,
will.
Dylan
I'm
just
also going to
mouthed
bring this
Evil
up
Dead.
that I'm going to imagine that. Well, hold on. Actually, no, wait. The kids are freshmen in high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're
That
still
was so
young.
scary.
It's just they're in that middle.
Nah,
Like,
they're doing
they're
meth
13,
and banging.
14.
well,
I mean,
They're
where did
bopping.
you go to high school?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I'm not going to talk about it.
I don't remember.
I mean, to be fair, he's
I don't remember.
not
I
wrong.
was doing drugs and having sex all the time. It's a blur.
I had a boring high school.
Preschool. It was a blur.
That's what you think.
Well, you went to the same high school. as
No,
me.
but did you know that's pretty much true.
Thank you, Dylan.
You did meth in high
No, I
school.
know I didn't do the math.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That would explain a lot now.
Yeah, that's telling, Dylan.
I don't know what you're talking
But no, look,
about.
we're going to accept that all these high school kids think this is super rad, and we're not going to belabor it, because if we do, we'll be on this all day. So the group of guys drove on this dark road for about 15 minutes before they came to a clearing and a small building with lights in it and what seemed to be a silo. They figured that at the very least, the people who lived here would be able to help them find where the guy's grandparents lived. The whole idea of everyone knows everyone in this hick part of the country fueled this hope.
Offensive.
A little bit. A little bit.
What are
As
you
someone
doing?
who's never been to the
Is it
Midwest,
Dylan
I'm
now
hurt.
with the Canadians.
Yeah, the big twist is Dylan wrote this story.
I would love. So leave a comment, guys, if you haven't
Give me
watched the
the
previous
burn.
episode and have
Jesus
no idea what
Christ.
we're talking
If
about.
we ever discover Dylan wrote one of these stories and it's anything like this,
I
it
would
will-
shit
Before,
out my
before we
eyeballs.
continue, can you hand me the burn ointment, please?
No!
Oh,
and
Why
stop
is it a
saying
burn?
that.
What if it
This is
could be a
fucking
good
ridiculous.
story?
That's not a burn. We're
It kind of is.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
it's not.
I mean, my eyes.
You're not
it's-
racist to Canadians for saying that Canadians are nice people.
That doesn't
First of all,
apply.
Canada isn't a race.
Hey.
Let's throw that out
Well,
there.
French Canadian kind of is, right?
No.
A little bit?
French people, it's not a race of people.
But, like, you refer to, they speak differently. They have different dialects, slightly.
Okay, let's cut this because we're gonna go on a conversation. What the hell is racism? And let's not.
Canada's not even a real country. It's just America too.
There
anyway.
we go. We figured it out.
It's our friends up north.
no.
Keep reading.
They pulled the car up near the building, realizing when they were out of the car that it appeared to be like the kind of places where one would store a whole bunch of chickens, not a home. Still, the lights were on, so they figured they would give it a try.
They approached the building as a group, looking into the semi-open sliding door to find a big empty room. Hanging fluorescent lights lit the room like it was daytime, and they couldn't see a soul. There were no cars, but one of Mr. May's friends was convinced he'd seen someone as they pulled up, so they decided to go inside to see if there was an office or something where someone might still be working. Why else would they have this huge place lit up like that? See, I'd be scared, because they're talking about, like, kick-ass people, and now you're trying to enter someone's house.
Yeah.
That motherfucker's probably got a shotgun.
You get out.
Yeah. There were no doors on the inside of the building. Again, it was just a giant empty hall, so the group roamed around the property and over towards the silo. As they got closer, they noticed what appeared to be a cellar door. Oh boy. At this point, I remember Mr. Mace telling the entire class to learn from his idiocy. He told us that he hadn't seen many horror movies before that time and didn't think twice about approaching a creepy cellar door in the middle of a dark, scary, foreign place. He said that approaching that door was one of his biggest regrets.
Get a little more front loading. And by the way,
no shit.
you shouldn't need a horror movie to know not to do that.
Right, exactly. Oh man, if only I saw more. If only I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
I would have
right.
never went down that cellar door.
Should have watched Scream 2.
Damn it! I knew knives were bad.
Mr. Mays let the whole class know that he was going to tell us as much as he deemed appropriate about the experience.
Okay.
He felt that we were mature enough to handle it, but advised anyone that was squeamish to leave class early. That alone, I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm squeamish, and then fucking left!
Read the next sentence.
Several students quietly gathered their things and walked out the door. A couple of big stoners who saw this as an opportunity to smoke behind their next class. Fair enough. I didn't even give the announcement a second thought. Like I said, I was and am a sucker for this kind of stuff, and Mr. Mace was telling a story better than anything I had ever conjured up.
I
suck.
sound a better liar
Because you're a
than
dumb
me.
freshman
Yeah.
kid. I wanted to learn from this guy, even though I didn't believe much of his story.
I can believe that a 13-year-old would think that some horror story that an adult is making would be better than anything he's ever come up
Right.
with in his short 13 years
Right.
of living.
After class had thinned a bit, Mr. Mace continued with the story. He told the remaining few that he and his friends opened that cellar door, releasing a smell that he only described as the most putrid thing my senses have ever experienced.
Okay.
The group was no longer concerned with finding the owners of the property, but was now set on finding the source of the smell. Even if Mr. Mace hadn't seen a horror movie yet, did any of the other kids ever watch fucking
I'm
anything?
going to throw out a thing here. They were smoking pot.
Probably.
They were, oh, dude,
Dude.
smells like shit down here,
Dude.
bro.
Dude.
What's that
Oh, yeah,
smell?
first of all,
It smells dank as
A
fuck.
decent amount of people get pretty paranoid when they smoke weed.
That's true.
There's at least one kid who's freaking
All right,
the fuck
obviously,
out.
I'm just joking
Also-
around.
also-
I'm not serious about my...
Also, this narrator is poking fun at tropes, although right now still using those tropes.
Are those trips stupid?
This,
All
is,
right.
this is the most, like, horror-ass protagonist
Right,
ever.
right.
So that's-
I love
They
horror.
went-
And this is the greatest horror story I've ever heard in my life.
And it's that same thing where, like, even if you point out tropes, it doesn't excuse them in your own work.
Right,
You know?
Right, just
Yeah.
like Strangled Red. They went down the steps into the cellar, which was lit by single bulbs spaced sporadically along the ceiling of a long hallway. No one spoke. Things had gotten too strange. The walls were lined with metal sheeting similar to the roofing on the farms. The hallway itself was crooked, and the ceilings constantly lowered and rose, like a tunnel that was hastily dug and then never touched up. There were sections where the boys had to almost crouch in order to pass.
The worst part, Mr. Mays told us, was that the light bulbs continuously flickered, sometimes acting like a strobe light and making it very difficult to move through the winding and unstable hallways. In hindsight, he was certain that his mind was playing tricks on him, but he remembered seeing flashes of things that he couldn't be there.
Oh, dude, disco ball, all right.
Cha, bruh.
Oh.
He said that when you are that focused on some time, or if you are that nervous, your mind can do that to you. It can simply revolt, showing you things or people that aren't there. He continued to describe the hallway, and I was on the edge of my seat. The halls were windy and seemed to go on forever. Mr. Mays guessed that they were somewhere under the creepy forest. They had driven through it when they found a door, but he couldn't be sure.
You know,
Right, they
creepy
found a
forest
door in
that we
the-
haven't mentioned previously.
My
but are going to
only,
mention
like,
now.
excuse for, like, what is happening here is the idea that this kid's really excited. Maybe Mr. Mays did tell a dope-ass story, and this is just a really sad, poor
Retelling,
recitation.
right.
He said that they came upon a door after walking for what felt like a mile. It was simple and wooden, but it looked like it belonged outside of a suburban home. It had a nice design, seemed to be freshly painted red, and had a very nice knob and knocker on it. It was a door that...
We're 5.
What got me was how Dylan laughed at that. He was trying really hard not to laugh.
Knockers.
It was a door that belongs at the entrance to a nice house, not one that would be sitting in a dirt tunnel in the middle of nowhere. His friend walked towards the door, moving carefully because of the flashing light bulb and increasingly uncertainty about the stability of the surrounding walls.
Again, that just flows into this idea that they're just like kind of out. They're either drunk or just like, whoa, the walls
yeah,
are...
yeah.
Those walls are moving, man. Oh,
No,
shit.
at this
Nah,
point,
bruh.
they're tripping.
Yeah, definitely.
They're tripping balls over
Tripping
here.
major balls.
Let's go on an adventure. Fuck maps.
He turned to the group, and the rest of which were nervous at the very least, and attempted to lighten the mood with a laugh before he said, I should probably knock first.
All right, he's the one that's high.
Oh, yeah.
It's just him.
Big
Everyone
time.
else is like, dude, like,
Dude.
no, maybe we should go back. No, man.
No, I'm gonna knock on the door,
They
bro.
got some real cheese back there.
Dude,
man.
I'm gonna... I could probably tell a good story if I keep going.
Mr. May's friend grabbed the steel knocker and hit it against the door. Stop it! Stop!
Again, I'm not laughing at Knocker. It's just laughing at you laughing at it.
Jesus.
Dylan, pull yourself together.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Mockingly, but quietly uttering, "Is anyone home?"
I love this
Good
story.
thing-
I'm just gonna say it right now.
please.
I'm really having a blast with this one.
Why?
I don't even think
I'm
it's
glad
good
someone
writing.
is.
Yeah, I'm not too happy right
I'm not
now.
happy with it, but I think it's just fun to read.
Keep
Alright,
going,
fair
Dylan, please.
The group waited about 30 seconds before their tension broke. The guy next to the door shrugged his shoulders and went back to walk back to his friends. But as he did, the light bulbs between them surged and exploded. The boys shielded their eyes and looked back to their lone friend by the door. As he lowered his hands, one of the metal sheets of the makeshift roof dropped. The edge of the sheet fell directly on the boy's forehead, slicing it open and sending a wave of blood down his face.
Oh, jeez.
The impact apparently knocked him out, and he fell back against the door, knocking it open in the process.
Alright.
The tale of the murderous ceiling.
Keep troping. What?
The entirety of the group rushed through the dim light to their friend, barely noticing the seemingly pitch-black room that now laid before them. Mr. Mays was the first to make it to his friend's side. He lifted the guy's head into his arms, immediately taking off his jacket and putting it over his forehead to attempt to stop the bleeding. Once the group had calmed down, Mr. Mays noticed that the arm that had been bracing his friend's head was soaking wet. He was confused about this and was attempting to sort it out. One of his friends started talking. He said something along the lines of, "The lights, we have to go," when Mr. Mays took notice. "You know when you turn off a light," he told the class, "and everything is almost pitch black, except the light of the bulb dying out or cooling down? It was like that. But there were so many of them. At least 20 light bulbs had lit the room seconds ago, and now only looked like little stars in the darkness. That was definitely terrifying, but that wasn't the scariest thing."
There was still a very dim light coming from the hallway behind them, and though it was weak, it lit the room up just enough to see the shape of tens of people standing less than 10 feet in front of them. Mr. May's friend went on to say something else as one of the bulbs to their right flickered to life. Oh good, hang on. Let me interrupt at this point and say that Mr. Mays was a generally playful guy.
no!
Wait, were you enjoying the pacing, everyone? Because fuck you.
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna
was
talk.
that I was actually starting to get invested in at
Yeah.
that point, and of course,
This-
Honestly, like it's written well enough where I can kind of follow it, and I'm having like it's I don't know, I'm not hating it so far,
This narrator is making a train wreck.
but
of the
like
pacing.
yeah, this is a big mistake.
Ted
But we're
Time.
done.
every story we read.
Okay.
Ted Caves, fuck you.
Let me
Games.
let me interrupt at this point and say that Mr. Mays was a generally playful guy. Gross.
Damn it.
He had that tone of voice that makes you
Probably
wanna-
shouldn't be a teacher.
I knew a teacher like that in high school.
We all
Very-
did.
Very playful.
He had that tone of voice that makes you want to respond. Basically, he could say, "Let's go jump off of a cliff, guys," and you would want to respond with, "All right, Mr. Mays, show us the way." Huh, that's a ridiculous statement, but it gets the point across.
Oh my god.
He was a charismatic guy. The whole story up to this point had been told like a campfire story. Yes, it has. He had the voice inflections of someone attempting to be mysterious and scary, which worked, but was noticeable. At this point in his tale, I recall that changing completely. He was no longer attempting to spook anyone. I could tell that this section was difficult for him. Either he was a very good actor, or it was a really terrifying memory for him to relive.
Alright. So point one for improving the story. Delete that paragraph.
Right, this person wants to get across a change in tone, and you know how you don't do that? You describe how someone in real life would
I think
do
this
it.
author may have accidentally done that because Dan was talking about how he started getting invested when he saw the tens of people standing in the light, but like...
Yeah, also, the intro of the story has nothing to do with what's going on up until this point.
Well, of
The
course.
author goes into how he tells people stories and spooks them even though they're full of shit. But this is real. But then he proceeds to tell a story that's not even his story. You're thinking like something scary actually happens to this author, and he's just recounting a story that somebody else told him. So the preface is inconsequential.
And that
You
would
know
be
what I
fine if
think?
he didn't keep interrupting the fucking story.
You know what I
Right.
think? I think I
Right.
know it's. I have not read this story before, but I'm going to make a prediction right now. Part 1 is him recounting Mr. Maze. Part 2 might be him going.
Oh, we
somehow.
gonna hit this shit?
Maybe just as an aside,
I don't
ladies
think
and
it's. I don't know that might happen.
No, just as
but-
an aside, ladies and gentlemen, I know William has talked about it quite often. I have started reading it.
Who?
The book
Shut
It
up!
by
Shut
Stephen
up! I
Who?
hate when fucking people do that.
What?
Oh, I see. He was making a joke.
He was trying to make it terrible funny.
It was a
About
funny.
what?
It was a hee.
So
About-
yeah, because the trailer dropped like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was really into it. So now I'm reading it. I'm halfway through, and it's awesome. And
Reading
I'm sure
what?
that me and William, I'm gonna fucking ignore you. Me and William are gonna talk about it a lot more on the podcast. So buckle up.
Because it's great.
Oh, that's all right. Who?
He told us that the light bulb came to life and illuminated the group of people in front of him. In the dim light, he could see children, at least 20 of them in the visible light. They were all dressed in nightgowns that looked to be tattered and torn, stained dark with something. Their hair was long. Every single one of them looked like they had not had a haircut since birth. Some of the children were almost completely obscured by the length of it. Every single one of them didn't appear to have seen a shower or nice bath in their entire life.
Gross.
Hey guys, you seen the ring? You guys see the ring? With the little girl with the long hair? We're gonna do
Or the
that.
Grutz?
We're gonna throw
Wait,
that
but there's like at least 20 girls, so it's 20 times better than the ring.
in. Mr. Mays told us the most terrifying part of the whole thing was that none of the children were moving.
Servants of Yummy
Do you think that those kids wash their ass though?
They were...
Stop! No.
Well, if they're anything like you, maybe not.
Well, it was dark tattered clothes, so
They could use their nightgowns, I guess. They were all standing, staring, most of them only visible from the faint light reflecting off of their eyes. His whole group was paralyzed with fear for several seconds when they heard what sounded like an animal in the distance yelping. The way it was described was like,
Yeah, that sounds good.
yeah, exactly, the sound of a dog crying, multiplied by 10.
That's what it is.
This spurred the group to life just as the children began to step forward. His friends grabbed the injured one and lifted him out of the room and into the hallway in an instant. Mr. Mays took another second to move, and he had difficulty finding his bearings. He reached to his left in an attempt to find a wall to lean against, and ended up finding a handle, then pulled hard, never losing his vision on the children.
So already I have a problem with believing this guy's story, because honestly, and I'm gonna look at Dan right now. If you had this experience where you were in a room, bunch of creepy children, and you're like, oh shit, there's kids. Why would you become a teacher? Why would that be the first?
true.
Why would that be your
That's
life
true.
goal?
That's actually
Oh
very
man,
true.
this is the scariest thing ever.
That's really true.
I gotta become a teacher now, guys.
John makes an amazing point that thought didn't even cross my mind.
Maybe that's why he only teaches high school.
That's
The
great.
only the older ones are okay.
Holy shit.
There's like the one kid in the back who's like, oh, that's an interesting
John,
story,
I
Mr.
mean-
Mays. And it's like really long hair.
I mean, John, we've talked about this before. I would never be in this situation because I'm a huge pussy.
But if you were, teacher would be the one job you would never do. Assuming he survives this, which he
Or, like,
clearly
Children's Hospital.
Um,
He bolted for the door right as he noticed what he had grabbed onto. A shower head protruded from the cement wall, reaching maybe a foot into the room. There was something leaking from it, but it was too dim to tell what it was. He realized that it had been leaking onto him, but he didn't care.
for the record, if these showers are dripping blood, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. They were now. They probably are. They were now children stammering towards him as an animal cried in the distance, and his friend was seriously injured. As he left the room, he had a point to emphasize that he could make out several more shower heads on the wall near the single dim light bulb. This is why I called them the showers, Mr. Mates told the class. I was transfixed, sitting as far forward as my desk would allow, bracing for more.
I always love when narrators tell us how to feel.
Yep.
That's
my
what I
favorite.
hate about this, because, like, again, some of the things in the story are actually interesting. Like, yeah, you would probably feel a little weirded out if you stumbled into a room with a bunch of shower heads. Like, that's a bit weird.
And
Especially it's
a
underground.
bunch of
and-
girls from the ring.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Also
weird.
that.
That's already kind of scary. We already get it.
Right.
You don't have to tell us that we should be sitting at the edge of our
Right.
desk.
It's not great.
For those of you writing stories, don't tell us how to feel.
Don't tell me how to feel when I'm reading your shit. I slammed. I don't know why that got to John. I slammed the red door behind me, he said, and I ran through that hallway faster than I had ever run before or since. I made it back to the car, and we drove out of there like a bat out of hell. A couple of students snickered at his use of the word hell. So when you're out there trick-or-treating tonight, make sure that you know exactly where you are headed, and don't go out to abandoned farmhouse. Okay.
Yes, Dan. Yes, Dan. Yes,
Um,
Daniel. Use your words, Dan.
He turns
Foreshadowing.
this into a morality thing, and it's like, when you go trick-or-treating tonight, make sure you're not... Motherfucker, you were drifting across the country through a fucking cornfield, and you stumbled upon an abandoned farm. There's nothing to do with just trick-or-treating around their neighborhood.
I understand, like, maybe
You
where
fuck!
he was talking about, because, like, he's saying, like, oh, don't be like me, kids. Don't
he
be...
said-
No, but that is a completely different
I
scenario.
know, but he's a teacher in front of students
All right,
right now.
Dan.
Even
This
though
is
he's
like
a
a
guy,
Dylan
even though
thing.
he's talking about how
Hey.
he was scared of these little
Hey.
kids as he's talking to
Hey.
kids.
For the record, Dan, if you read the next sentence, you'll realize he meant it in a joking manner.
I mean, there aren't many kids around here. There aren't many around here, but you're all smart kids, except Jerry. Doesn't matter. Now I feel like an asshole.
I wish,
left.
Dan, I would have went across this table and given you a hug if you had read Jerry as Dylan. I would have died.
I should.
A missed opportunity.
I know. The class left in the
Thank you,
moonlight
God.
as the bell rang for passing period.
Okay.
That was perfect timing. Mr. Mace turned the light on and thanked everyone for listening, reminding them about the paper due next week, and he told us to have a safe and happy Halloween. Students all around me were abuzz with theories about the story they had just heard. I bet it was some sort of crazy Nazi hideout. said
If I
one
was
girl.
13, I probably would have the same theory.
I think they were all ghost babies that were killed by a dog, said another. I couldn't theorize in the slightest. I was still caught up in the moment. The way Mr. Mace... Oh, Jesus. turned to a demon there for a second. Mr. Mace had told that story, and the detail that he included in it left me feeling like we didn't get the whole story.
I
Now,
can just
keep in
imagine.
mind-
I can just imagine the author writing this, and it's like, wow, I was so enthralled by this story that I totally didn't make up on my own.
Keep in mind, the author said that he doesn't remember a lot of the details, but made a pretty fucking comprehensive memory of the story.
More just needless narration.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Go ahead, Dill.
A couple days later, I stayed after class and asked him about how it really ended and what happened to his friend. He laughed and said that his friend was fine and that it was honestly, he whispered this part, probably due to some of the drugs they were on at the time.
Yes! Yes!
We knew
Dude,
it.
we need... end the pot. Done. We're not recording anymore of these. We're too fucking good for these stories.
Yes, I'm so happy I got that right. Yes,
The LSD.
best episode ever.
We'll give you guys the moment.
This is like when Dylan guessed that it was a dream sequence at the end of White Christmas.
Because he was 0 for like 20 beforehand and finally got one.
0 for 24, I was 1 for 25.
Holy fuck.
Alright, go ahead, Dylan.
Mr. Mays winked at me as if to say, don't tell anyone about the drugs, bit kid. And I smiled and left.
He told a 13-year-old that he did drugs.
I mean, come on.
I mean,
Hey,
John-
kid, please don't tell anyone. I could get fired.
John, he-
Seriously.
he
That was,
really
listen,
cool.
that was years and years and years ago. Nobody's gonna fucking charge him for that.
I know, but still, it's
He
like,
was really
if
cool.
I was him, I would be like, especially since I don't trust children because of this story.
It's a fucking
Freshman in high school, they're not gonna say
Oh
shit.
my
I
god.
guess.
Yeah, no, fucking, you don't want to be a snitch. You don't want to be the kid.
Yeah, but
that
when
fucking snitched.
but a week from now, when that kid comes to him again, it's like, hey man, Mr. Mays,
I need some.
got any pot?
I need that devil lettuce, man.
The devil's lettuce.
I need the Mary Jane.
I lived in that town for another couple months and then was rapidly moved halfway across the country to the worst town in the
Oh
world.
my God.
Milwaukee.
Honestly, that's
Okay.
the hold on. That's
Hold-
actually that's the scarier story here. Why are you moving? Like, what's your parents' job? Where you're like,
We've hit the real horror where now he's in Milwaukee.
No,
Now it's creepy.
Milwaukee,
Dylan.
Wisconsin.
Dylan, last time I checked, isn't Evil Dead set in Wisconsin?
I was in Michigan.
Oh, it is in Michigan.
you could have.
Oh my god, I'm a
don't
super fan. How did I not know that? Oh boy.
By the way, they did not
Wisconsin?
pick up that whisper at
No,
all,
that's
so.
fine because I don't want them to know that I fucked up Evil Dead trivia. It's my favorite trilogy of all series
No.
of all time.
Wisconsin, the worst place on earth,
Right,
according
that's
to
true.
Dogma.
Yeah, that's true. Also, have a funny feeling I know where we're about to go with this fucking story. Just by twist of fate, he's gonna find the fucking farm.
That's what I said.
Oh my
I said that. But that's part 2.
John, if that's how part 1 ends, we're fuck. I'm not doing part 2.
Come on. This is great.
No, it's not.
No,
Dylan,
not the story.
it's
Reading
great
it's
for
great.
all the wrong
yes.
reasons.
Dylan, keep going.
Look, we're having fun. Honestly.
We got the
Maybe
we're
not.
gonna get- we may get the twist. Let's
This fun is a fucking
Power
root
through.
canal.
Dylan, keep going.
Okay. I twisted the story around and told it around campfires as I got older. It was always a hit, but I always changed the ending, letting the friend die or blood loss or from being dragged away by the children.
Because I lie when I tell creepypastas.
It wasn't until college that I got a chance to talk to Mr. Mays again. I went to college in northern New York, not for any reasons associated with the story. College was a fun time for me. I continued being the same ham that I had always been. It wasn't until sometime around my junior year that I ran into Mr. Mays at a bar that I frequented. Initially, I couldn't be sure that the person I saw laying with his head buried in his arm at the bar was Mr. Mays. The only trait that grabbed my attention was a sweater that he used to wear on his birthday during class. The shirt simply read, "I'm the birthday boy." I told my group of friends to grab a table and that I would join them in a second. Then walked over to the man at the bar. "Mr. Mays," I said, and the man looked up. The man took a second to look at my face before he smiled, put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Hey there, son, how have you been?" I could smell some strong whiskey on his breath, and his cheeks were flushed.
Looks like the drugs he's still on, still doing something.
No, he's just drunk.
He's just drunk. The look in his eyes told me that he was 3 sheets to the wind and probably had no idea who I was. "Mr. Mays, it's Jack."
That's an old-ass saying.
Yeah.
"I was a student of yours for a couple semesters about 6 or so years ago." His face changed a bit, and a genuine look of recognition set in. He took a calmer tone, smiled, and said, "How have you been, Jack?" We talked for a solid 20 minutes. I told him what I'd been doing for the last several years, and he told me apparently he was still teaching at the same school, the same old shtick, as he called it. I asked if everything was all right, and he said that they were as good as they ever have been, or were ever going to get. It took me a while to realize that I was an adult that was having a conversation with another adult.
Congratulations.
I'm an adult!
What a fucking weird sentence.
Every time I had spoken to Mr. Mays previously, I had been in the student-teacher relationship, but now I was just a guy having a drink with a friend at the bar.
He's not your friend, kid.
My friends eventually left, and I continued to drink with Mr. Mays. He told me all about his divorce and his kids, things that I never would have asked or cared about previously, but now I cared. He was a real person to me, not just an idol anymore. This was a guy who had real problems, not the infallible teacher that I once thought he was. It had been several hours before I even brought up the story about the showers. I told him all about my history with urban legends and scary stories, and he just laughed. When I mentioned the story that he had told us years ago, he almost seemed uncomfortable. He finished his whiskey, signaled for another, and then turned to me and got very serious.
Oh my god.
Listen, Jack. I don't know why I keep telling that story, year after year. His words were slurred, or my hearing was messed up. We were both sufficiently blitzed at this point. That was what the therapist told me to do when I was younger. I had to tell people it, to come to grips with it, or some shit.
Why are you doing Mr. Plinkett right
I
now?
don't know.
I don't know what he's doing.
He took a big swig of his drink. Wait, are you a therapist? I said.
That's
Mr.
not-
Mays.
wait,
No,
wait,
no,
wait.
therapist.
That's not
Wait,
the
you're
question.
Have you been drinking?
I might be. I ad-libbed that. Mr. Mays laughed heartily and looked at me. Of course, Jack. You think that something like that wouldn't fuck a person up? I was confused, but smiled nonetheless. Things had now just gotten very strange. But, I mean, you said you were all on drugs or something, right? No one was too terribly hurt? You were all okay, right? He got almost cartoonish with his sadness in the next several seconds. Of course we didn't, Jack. Why do you think I'm here right now? I was puzzled, quickly filled with 1,000 questions that I wanted to ask him, but I let him carry on. Tim fucking... He didn't make it, Jack. What the...
Tim fucking... You didn't make it, Jack.
That sentence is literally...
Trying to
He's
do
drunk.
some, like, real dialogue, but it's really awkward in a story. Like,
Honestly, that might have been the greatest line I've read of this.
fucking...
Tim fucking... He didn't make it, Jack. He laughed. His laugh turned suddenly to tears. Fucking took him. They did. I don't even know. Cops just told him we were drunk and that he wandered off and gotten taken by the wildlife. He didn't know. He didn't see it, Jack.
So he was ad-libbing it, but he was ad-libbing, but he was taking
I said I was
right.
ad-libbing.
No, he was telling his own version of the story to cope with what actually happened.
Oh no, I'm talking about the other, the narrator. He
Right.
was telling ad-libbing, although he was probably
Right,
right with one of those
right,
situations.
right. In a tragic twist of fate, the narrator's
It's
version
bad.
of the story is actually the truth of the story. Fucking dumb. Dumb and stupid and dumb.
I was absolutely stone-faced at this point. Mr. Mays was carrying along like I knew the actual story, but I didn't. His friend disappeared. I didn't know. I wish they had found the body, though. Then we could have shown them, he sighed. That's a bad place, Jack. I don't know anything else to say. It's a bad place. He carried on like this for a couple of more minutes about his friend and the fun they had before they went on the trip, and I let him talk. It was only a few minutes later that his phone rang. "Hello, sweetheart," he whispered into his phone. "Yeah, I'll be out in a second." He gagged. "Love you, baby." The person on the other end hung up the phone, and Mr. Mays got up to leave. "It's been nice seeing you, Jackie. You've got a good head on your shoulders, boy. Make sure you use it." He began to walk out of the bar.
Let's not jump the gun on that decision, because I have a funny feeling I know where this is going.
"Mr. Mays," I yelled after him. "Yeah, Jack?" He turned back to me. "Where'd you say all that shower business took place?
Oh my god.
Can I get a latitude and a longitude, sir?" "Where? Hell, didn't I mention it? It's somewhere outside Broken Bow, Nebraska. Fucking hell on earth, if you ask me."
Devil Cornhuskers.
Mr. Mays walked out of the bar after waving to me, running into the wall before finding the door. That was the last time I would see him. I'd never be able to tell him the impact he had on my life, or rather, the impact his story had on me. He'd never know about the trip we took after graduation, almost mimicking the one he and his friends had made. He would never know the things he saw at that place were real. He would never know how badly I did foreshadowing, and how much it broke up the pacing and tension in the story. Why? Well, he died about a month later. His liver failed on him. It's alright, though, because his family was with him in the hospital room. He got to die around people that cared about him, and that is all I can ask for a man like that. Glad to hear how you felt about it. Jesus Christ. The fuck? I experienced that place too several years later. That is where my story turns. The following is the story of how I came to find the showers, and why I will never ever go anywhere near Nebraska ever again. I'll finish the story when I'm sober. The memory is clear enough. This is it's like someone dumped a trope list in a blender.
It really is,
and then they hit blend.
There are some...
And now we all have to drink it, Dan. We drink the trope smoothie.
If it turns out that...
Honestly, this story, as if the pacing wasn't completely shredded, it could have been decent.
John...
But what I like, honestly, I think the way that... I just don't know. I think that we had fun reading, and I think it made for a really good episode. So I think we are going to read part 2.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you just enjoy breaking our spirits?
No, we laughed. We had fun, honestly.
We did have fun, but this story was oh boy.
If this story ends up that he's telling this story to the people who abducted him, okay.
You know what? That would actually be a decent twist. That would save the story. But Dylan, I doubt that the author is as clever as you are, and that's saying a lot. Look,
a real damnation right there, I'd say.
So.
Yes,
I don't even know. I don't even know what to say, because you could have literally just cut this whole first part out. You could have just cut all of this out.
Not even all of it.
No.
Okay, so like the parts that's the biggest problem with this story is the things that you can cut out. Like that part in the middle where you're getting sort of into where he's talking about the kids that he's like vaguely seeing in the shadows, and then it's like, now let me tell you something about the way he was telling the story. Right. I was on the edge of my seat, of course, but he really started getting really serious in this moment.
The setup is bad. The idea of this place, this weird, creepy underground tunnel, children in very dim light, creepy image, tropey, but still creepy, still a little creepy. Fucking weird, creepy, gross children are still scary to me. But like the fact that this author spends all his time, I used to bullshit stories, but this is real. Then, by a twist of fate, not only finds the teacher in a bar somewhere in northern New York, but then he gives him a town, and he's able to find the farm with his friends as well.
Well, that's what's probably going to happen
it's
next.
Fucking stupid. He says it. He says he finds
He says
her.
it because he insists on foreshadowing every single fucking thing that'll happen in the story.
Yeah, right.
Because he wants to make sure we're ready to be scared, Dan.
Right.
Dan, are you ready to be afraid? Because it's going to be terrifying.
So, and like I said, I mean, this whole thing, if we read part 2 and it's just his experience in the tunnels, the whole part 1 is null and void. Because you could have just told the fucking story.
No, I see what you're saying in the sense that it would be incredibly pointless and wasteful to
Also-
tell a build-up story like this, and then to have the actual story be just reliving the exact same story beats.
or even reliving something similar or getting a little bit more information. Because why have that first part then?
It's incredibly redundant.
Right.
And maybe
Right.
it won't be, Dan. We can't quite...
Yeah, Will.
Oh,
do
I'm
you think,
I'm
though?
fucking sure it
Do
will
you
be,
think,
Dan.
though?
I would be shocked if it wasn't. But give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it doesn't deserve it, but we're gonna anyway.
I can't do that anymore, Will.
Right.
I'm all out of benefits of doubts. Can't do it anymore. We've been doing this for 30 episodes? I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I'm as
Right.
cynical as ever. It's awful.
I think there is a story in here somewhere, and I think that maybe maybe part 2 would be good, and maybe at the end of the day we just say that we don't know why part 1 exists, but if part 2 is on its own, maybe it will be good, or maybe not. I'm kind of hoping it just keeps being the same thing.
Probably will be.
Look,
Maybe the first part deters the weak-minded.
as someone who
I don't know.
who writes frequently, just recreationally, I'm gonna admit I have this issue too sometimes, where there's too much of a preface, not just horror, it's anything. It's too much of a preface, but or too much exposition or blah 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 blah, but whatever. But this is just fucking, for a horror story, it doesn't work. It's boring and it breaks up the pacing really badly, like we talked about. And
It spends so much time telling
It's
us to be
tired.
scared that we can't even begin to be scared.
right.
No,
don't get it
that-
It
twisted.
also undercuts it with, oh, this teacher's so cool, and kids snickered. And
That
blah, blah, blah.
weirdly sophomoric series of he
Right.
was so cool. He said hell. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Who is this story
What does
for?
that have to do with the?
Yeah. A lot of contradictions, and I don't think the story is good, as based on what we've read. I think I just had more fun just reading it, honestly, and that's
It
where
was
I got my
fun.
enjoyment.
It's a fun.
Unlike the lost episode with the cave, where we couldn't even really riff on anything.
It's fucking
This, at least, there was tropes that we could laugh at.
My 5-year-old mind took over.
Fucking-
Knockers.
With the
fucking
knockers.
audience out there. You should be thankful and feel blessed that you're not listening to the cave right now. Because holy shit, what a fucking
The
mess.
day we read Caves was the worst
Was
day of
real
our
low.
lives. But for you guys, it was
It's
just
a
another
Tuesday.
sad Sunday.
It was
Okay.
Sunday. It just. Whew. And that was supposed to be a 3-parter, and fuck.
We might eventually come back to that one eventually down the road.
Fuck
but
me.
we'll see what happens with that.
Nate's
Well,
not here.
Next
Yeah,
time we
exactly.
get to tackle part 2, so we can all look forward to that instead.
Well,
It's
one
okay. Hear
part.
about this, Dan. Okay, so objectively, is there any hope for part 2?
I don't think so.
Is there?
Of
do you
course,
think,
there's always hope,
There's
not
Daniel.
ho-
I
okay,
don't
William.
think so.
Honestly, can you?
Is there more hope than watching Fast and Furious?
No, hold on.
I
hold on,
mean, when I
hold
say
on.
hope, can he recover and write a decent? If he
I
writes,
would certainly hope so, but the way this is written, if it's any indication, probably not. I would love if this story did a 180. I really would. I think it has potential to. I think it absolutely can if the author really tries, but I'm unimpressed with what I've read so far.
right.
And just because of how tropey it is and how it goes off on tangents occasionally, and some of the things, whatever, I'm riffing on the fact that they keep talking about how cool the teacher was, but it makes sense later, it pays off later when he approaches him in the bar. Because if that was me and it was a teacher that I didn't give a shit about, I would be like, oh, was that whoever? But I wouldn't fucking approach them, and that's fine. But that payoff is so minuscule, and the fact that it leads to this character going, the teacher revealing where it is, and this character going, well, I'm gonna go there now, I guess, is fucking dumb. It's whatever.
Can't even talk about it.
It's bad.
Language.
It's bad, and it's got the same problem that I think a lot of stories have, where there are bits that are good and it has the potential to be better, but the choices in it are so fucking tropey and boring and baffling.
I
It's
feel like I caught glimpses of another story that was very
Right.
tropey, that was really good that we read here. Was it's not exactly the same, but it was filled with tropes, and we kind of laughed at it too. But we thought it was really good. Was with Room 733.
Right.
We had some fun with that one, and that story was incredibly tropey, but I think it was just written a little bit better, and there wasn't as much foreshadowing in that.
and it didn't front load everything, and there were interesting concepts with the tropes. There's nothing interesting.
And we had fun with the maybe imaginary Cthulhu aspect.
right.
I think that's where most of my enjoyment
Right,
came from.
Room 733, the tropes were there, and they were made fun of in a way that made sense. It was meta enough. because you didn't have the opening of that story be either front loading the horror or talking about how
It's like
tropes and fucking stories are stupid and you should
that's
avoid them.
how you kill Room 733 is if you start by saying, "Now look, I know there's a lot of suicides in college, but listen
Right,
up."
right, right.
But
Exactly.
also, it made, while you're reading Room 733, it had you thinking about little things that the author put in there, like, oh, like the sevens with the number.
There's
years,
little
just
red
little-
herrings in
yeah.
there that are clever and interesting. This is not clever and interesting.
That's a very nice word you used.
This is straight up a tropey, creepy. There's no substance to it.
It's like pieces of a puzzle where a lot of the pieces are missing, but
Right.
you
So,
still
like,
kind
from-
of see what could be there.
Right.
See, that reading it though, because the more it's not the pros don't outweigh the cons in the first part.
Right.
So I mean, usually the cons outweigh the pros, the second part usually tends to follow suit
Right.
rather than go take a 180.
This
and
ain't
turn
no
pro.
Empire Strikes Back business.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I don't
maybe we'll get dark and brooding. Maybe
know.
we'll never know. But I mean, once we get to we will know when we read part 2. But I mean, we'll see.
I want the protagonist to open the door when he gets down there
It's
and
a
open
party.
it, and it's like a front reception hall, and it's like you win $500 if you get through the whole house.
What if in part 2 he experiences the same thing with his group of friends exactly, and then like the story
He's
ends
the one that
with
gets hit in
him.
the ceiling?
No,
'Cause that'd be
he
cool.
becomes a
The
high school
teacher,
teacher
sure.
himself, and he tells stories
And
to
it's-
all
That
new
would be
group of
even worse.
kids. I know.
That would be such a goosebumps
Oh, it would
ass
be
ending.
so.
Here's what
so
I want.
goosebumpy.
Either what Dylan said, where he's retelling it to to his captors who are torturing them and slowly murdering him, or he gets down there and he's the one that fucking takes the hit to the face and then gets dragged in and dies. That would be fucking awesome. I would be okay with that.
No. A Goosebumps ending, Dan, is if they solve the problem, they escape, and as they're leaving, a spaceship comes down in a cornfield and brings them up into the sky. Or alternatively, they find out all the little girls are their mother at the same time. And they go, "We've been waiting for you, Stanley." And he turns and he looks just like them and he goes, "What?" And then it ends. Because Goosebump endings are unbelievably stupid, Dan. They make no sense. They often have no bearing on the rest of the story. And they serve no purpose other than to confuse and beguile young children into buying the next book.
And that's how we'll end this episode on a Goosebumps rant from William. Alright, so this has been Scary Friends, and I'm going to sign out now. This has been myself, Dan, Dylan, and William. We'll see you in the next one where we read part 2 of The Showers.
Oh boy! Hey.
Stay safe, everybody. I think, honestly, though, this was one of the better episodes we've had. Like, I think even some of, like...
I think talking about how good the episode is
Diminishes the...
As far, all right,
So end
you know
the
what I
episode
mean.
and then talk
No,
about it.
okay. To clarify,
Not to toot my own horn, but-
I'm not tooting my own horn.
John's
I'm
the
saying
narrator. Dun, dun.
to clarify. I'm not saying that like the story, like this episode, is gonna be the greatest episode of Scary Friends. I'm saying that like just as in terms of how I felt about it, especially compared to the ending of Ted the fucking Caver.
All right, we're glad you
We've
enjoyed
already-
it more than Ted the
We've
Gamer.
already had our best episode. That was Jeff the Killer. It's all been downhill
All
from
right.
there.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there.
It's all. I mean, you can't. That's where we peaked.
We're finished.
That was 14 episodes in. We peaked. That was half a year ago, half a lifetime ago.
We're has-beens.
Yeah, we
so.
really are. We're totally sellouts now.
Yep.
We're gonna do like a fucking another like haunted gaming one and just complete like the most popular haunted gaming one and just shit the bed.
Yep.